So it's my distinct pleasure to introduce to you Dr. David Docherty, President of BU. David joined BU in May and was officially installed as the university's 15th President and Vice Chancellor at the 2019 convocation. An accomplished academic and administrator, David has a distinguished history of leading institutions through growth and growth it's a terrible thing. You need someone to lead you through that growth. Through growth and transformative change. And he's currently leading the development of a new strategic plan. David's an expert in parliamentary government in Canada. This is close to my heart. I am also a political scientist. And he's the author of 2 books, including Mr. Smith Goes to Ottawa, Life in the House of Commons, and Legislatures, which is it's not a very stimulating title for a I'm sorry, I'm not. He's also written many articles and chapters on Canadian legislatures and is a media commentator on provincial and national law. I'm going to speed things up here, but I wanted to specify this. I've already seen this at BU. David has a deep commitment to embracing Indigenous knowledge and perspectives, and he received a Blackfoot name and headdress in 2018. So from the perspective of Brandon University, to have someone with this kind of a commitment to truth and reconciliation, I think is a great thing for us, and so that's one. David's also a strong advocate for the importance of mental health well-being, including reducing stigma and providing the necessary supports. So, the last thing I'm going to say is that, the second last thing I'm going to say is that David has come to us from Mount Royal in Calgary, where he served as the president for 8 years, and prior to that, as a faculty member in the political science department at Wilfrid Laurier in Waterloo, where he also served as a senior advisor for campus initiatives and governance in the office of the provost and VP academic. Okay, and the last thing I wanted to say is that a couple days ago, I posted a picture of you with this on my Facebook, and I got a response from someone, from Laura McDonald, a colleague of mine at Carleton. Yes. And this is what she said. Wow, David is looking sharp. With 2 exclamations. So there, I just thought that would be because you are looking sharp.
So, before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we are in treaty territory. The land which gathers land of the territory of the Anishinaabe, the Cree, the Oji Cree, the Assiniboine, the Dakota, and the Bene peoples, the homeland of the Métis Nation. I come from Treaty 7 territory, the land of the Sidibe, Blackfoot, Siksika, Makani, Tsukina, Kainai, Ayaga, Dakota. It's also home to the Métis Nation. That's where the Bow meets the Elbow River. You may know it as Calgary. I love land acknowledgements. I really do. Because if we talk about here being on Treaty 2, that come from Treaty 7, it means different things to different people. It ties us to the past. I appreciate them because I'm a newcomer here, and the land acknowledgements are a way for me to learn about some of the history of this place and the communities that are part of it. If I say Brandon, Manitoba, then maybe you get a package delivered here. When we say Treaty 2, we remind ourselves this is a place where people from different backgrounds came together to make an agreement with certain rights, certain responsibilities, an agreement that we remain bound by today. And when we say traditional territory, we remind ourselves that there were people living here long before any of us in this room were born. And when we say homeland, we remind ourselves that there are people for whom this has always been where they have been. So knowing the history of the place allows us to compare it to the present. By looking at the differences between then and now, we can also begin to think about what the future might be and what we might want in the future. Communities, town and gown. Before I begin, Grant knows this story. I didn't wear a BU pin today because I've always been told to try to say something light This pin was given to me when I gave testimony to House of Commons Committee on Electoral Reform. I made a presentation as an expert witness, and as a thank you afterwards, they said how they loved my talk, and they gave me this pin, and this pin is grasped at the green copper maple leaf is the copper from the old Library of Parliament. So I was a parliamentarian. I was thrilled. I thought, wow, they must really, this is great. This is what an honor. Terrific. They must really love me. 6 months later, I was back in Parliament Hill, and I stopped into the parliamentary bookstore, and they were selling it for $9.95. I realized that's what they thought my talk was worth. You can decide by the end of this evening. But I looked at myself, and I'm worth up to $10 now, pre-tax or none. People have asked me the biggest one. From Calgary, and I think one of the biggest differences is they don't pay $1 to park for 2 hours. Town and gown. We think about what town and gown means, and we talk about it in terms of the relationship between a university or a college and the community itself. We also tend to think about perhaps movies. When I became a dean, my son, who was about 12 at the time, said, "You know, Dad, in every movie I've ever seen, the deans are real." Then he named a certain and he named a certain part of his body, our bodies, that I will not repeat here. And he was right in a way. I kind of went back to my mind. I was accepted back to school. The deans are always, and it always seemed to be cast against the town. They always seem to have some kind of conflict with the town. And of course, it's Hollywood, and it's stereotypical, and they tend to be comedies, but they kind of engender a stereotype about what the relations are between the university and the town. We can think of some universities in Ontario where Westman's homecoming, where thousands, tens of thousands of people take to the streets. My own institution, Laurier, for whatever reason, St. Patrick's Day party that ended up, they bus students in from other areas and those kinds of things. Yes. And how many, like 30,000, 20,000 students in a kind of a square block, the Ezra Street block neighborhood. And those kinds of things can define the relationship between universities and the community. That's too bad, because community really means cooperation. We work together to achieve common goals. We may disagree on some things, but through compromise and discussion, we can move forward. I was reflecting on that in light of being a political scientist. I couldn't help it, but in light of the most recent federal election results. Because minority government is also about cooperation. It's also about putting aside some of your own first needs and thinking about the greater good of the community. And that's very much what town and gown is. Think about changes in education. I mean, people might not know, but University of Cape Breton has been in the news lately because they've had a 67% increase in student population as international students. So you think of what that kind of, so on one hand, that's a great news story. It's great for the university. It's great for those individuals who are coming over to Canada to get an education. Hopefully many of them will stay in Canada and remain Canadian. And it's great for the local economy. But the cultural shift, both for the students coming and for the community, is also great. And it can only be worked out if there's good relationships between the university and the community itself. So why is BU so important to this community? Why is BU so important to Brandon? Well, first, we provide important educational opportunities to Westman. Nearly 3/4 of our students come from Westman. True, many of them could attend U of M or U of W, and indeed some start with us at Brandon, move on to U of M if they fall in love with a program that we don't offer. You're in our science program and you realize you love photonics, you may decide at the end of second year you have to move. Yeah, but they got our start with us. We shouldn't consider that as a loss for BU, as they would not have found a passion for what they wanted to do had they not started with BU. We are a first choice for many students in Brandon, Western Manitoba. We inspire people who live here to further their education. We are accessible as a hometown university in a way that is much more convenient for some and affordable for some than having to move somewhere else. My own children declared that they were not going to be a student in any province where I was a university president. That's why they have a child now in Halifax going to school, one in Calgary going to school, and one in Vancouver going to school. But for many students, they don't have that opportunity. We provide an important educational opportunity for students. It's possible for many people to get a university education at BU who might not otherwise be able to attend it. We are a draw for many people who move to Brandon or Western Manitoba. Having a university is an important attraction for a town. When people move to Brandon, they want to know can their children stay here after they finish secondary school. Brandon is fortunate to have ACC and BU. There are many Canadian cities our size that have neither, let alone both. So those opportunities are tremendous. We're a major contributor to the Western Manitoba economy. We are presently getting set to update our economic impact statement or impact study for BU. The last time we did it was 2014, 2015. And so the figures I'm going to give you are a little bit dated, but they should provide some context. As I say, we will have updated figures soon. The annual economic impact of Brandon University is over $400 million. That's a significant figure in Western Manitoba. That's tremendous. The return on investment for every $1 in government grants the province gives us is $11. That's tremendous. The $400 million includes a research impact of approximately $87 million a year. We have an alumni premium, that is the economic benefit as a result of being a BU grad versus not being a university grad. So think about this, that our impact in many ways is due to the value of a Brandon University degree. People with a BU degree are trained and ready to make a huge contribution in the economy. They may earn a lifetime of higher salaries. And guess what? 75% of our graduates live in Western Manitoba. So they're paying their taxes here. They're spending their money here. That's tremendous. Think about some of the schools in Eastern Canada, such as Mount Allison, New Brunswick, Acadia, St. Mary's, St. FX in Nova Scotia. And they do a tremendous job. They do a tremendous job. I would not argue against any university in any part of Canada. But the bulk of students at Mount A and at St. Mary's and Acadia and St. FX, many of them come from Ontario, Alberta, Quebec. What does that mean? It means that long-term benefit of having them there. God, my son was doing graduate work in Calgary now. He'd go to Dalhousie. My other son's at St. Mary's right now. He will graduate and leave because there aren't the kind of jobs and opportunities for them in Nova Scotia. So that economic benefit is gone once they're gone. Whereas for our graduates, they're putting that money back in the Manitoba economy. That's part of that $11 return on investment that we talked about. We've become a major tourist draw through annual events like Homecoming, that took place this past weekend, Bobcat Games, through art exhibits and concerts at School of Music. When you think about it, the people who come in for homecoming, art exhibits, conservatory events, Bobcat Games, when we host national tournaments, these are people who fill our restaurants, our shopping, and our hotels. BU helps fill hotels. Convocation, homecoming, university, national sports tournaments. In fact, in the 2014-15 economic impact study suggests that BU brings in close to 50,000 people a year. Western Manitoba. That's significant. We provide good jobs. The economic impact of our staff and faculty alone helps to support the local economy. Incoming faculty buy houses, put their children in our school system, purchase vehicles, go to sports and cultural events, are involved in local groups. They are part of the community. Our research has a direct impact on the community. For example, one faculty member's research into rural road maintenance will have huge dividends in the life cycle of gravel roads. That may sound a little bit old, but if you think about it, if you can get another 10 years out of a gravel road by applying something that was learned and developed and brought forth in BU and with partners in Winnipeg, that will have tremendous savings for the province. Savings that can be invested elsewhere. We have our research, our built-in Brandon research connection at the back of the room, and I encourage many of you to take a look at it. It talks about a lot of the research that's going on at BU. We analyzed Brandon School. We've analyzed Brandon School playgrounds for toxic elements. And thankfully, we didn't find it. That's the kind of case where the researcher is glad. Results. We convened a roundtable to combat sexual exploitation of children and youth. We're researching ways to maintain agricultural livelihoods. We do tremendous work in education and nursing, making sure our K-12 teachers and our healthcare system is filled by graduates who start at the top of their game. We are engaging indigenous communities in sustainable food initiatives that are under threat due to colonial development. We're assessing the impact of families with a member who has acquired brain injury. That's just a few of the things that are going on in research. And it's tremendous. It's tremendous. One of the neat things, Steve is here, one of the neat things about being a provost or a president is that we get to learn so much more that's going on at our own campus. At homecoming, when we had the science folks out giving demonstrations, it was really remarkable to see the great work we're doing. We're also, Brandon University is also a major contributor to the cultural life of Western Manitoba. Our conservatory and faculty of music are nationally recognized. Our performances are open to the community. Our Bobcat varsity teams draws good crowds and also gets national attention. Our men's volleyball team, most recent example, second in Canada, silver in sports. I was, as Rick indicated, I come from Mount Royal just before I was coming. Knowing that I was coming, people at MRU knew I was coming here, and people here knew I was coming here. The semifinals, Mount Royal was playing BU. That was volleyball. Someone said, "Are you going?" I said, "No." I think that Cougar, this is MRU, Cougars can beat a Bobcat. And I said, the important thing is that the Bobcat can beat a bison. And a Cougar can beat a Calgary. But it was amazing to watch. We actually watched the live stream. We watched the games. They were tremendous games. But the size of the crowd was remarkable. It truly was. Everybody coming in to cheer. Truly wonderful to see about that town and gal connection. So why is our community, why is Brandon so important to BU? Well, you provide us with many of our students. That's a symbiotic relationship. As I indicated earlier, much of our research is based on things that are occurring in our own community. Your city, Western Manitoba, the whole area is part of our laboratory space. Our gravel roads are part of our laboratory. Most recently, we created an institute for critical mental health in rural areas, the study of critical mental health in rural areas. It's a new institute. It's remarkable. Sure, it exists in Philadelphia. It does. It also provides us with an opportunity to further our understanding of mental health in rural areas. It will transcend beyond our boundaries. So it will have a local impact, but it will have a national impact as well. Partnerships. Brandon is a great size, large enough to just offer just about everything, small enough you can develop personal relationships that add a lot of value to professional relationships. Brandon University has a great relationship with Brandon School Division, Prairie Mountain Health, for example, helping us send out students for practical experience as part of their education. I'll talk a little bit more about that. We have a great relationship with groups like the City of Brandon, Brandon Tourism, Brandon First, the Chamber of Commerce, so we can offer our facilities and our resources to the benefit of everyone. We have a great relationship with ACC, sharing programs, sharing research, sharing residence space. We are very lucky for such as both the university and community college, and have such a great relationship. The amenities of Brandon are attraction for people coming to work with us. We can indicate what Brandon has to show them, people who are interviewing for jobs. So let me speak from personal experience. My wife and I have been very impressed with the opportunities that are here at Brandon for us. We have 2 large dogs. Brandon Hills are fabulous. There's nothing, a tired dog is a well-behaved dog. So we try to tire them out as much as possible. And the Brandon Hills are tremendous. Walking along the river, walking in neighborhoods. We are season ticket holders to the weekends. And although Laura McDonald said I might have looked sharp, I qualify for the seniors lobster claw all-you-can-eat Friday night before the hockey game this day. So I only pay $22.50. My wife has to pay $25. We have access to great golf and great cross-country skiing in the winter. And it's true, I miss the Rocky Mountain ski hills. But I know that the hills aren't as big here. I can go ski in the morning and be back in my office for a meeting at 1 o'clock. And that's pretty cool. But I won't do it this way. As I said earlier, it's not unusual to see a gulf between a university and the community in which it's located. This is called the ivory tower syndrome. Academics are viewed as having their head in the clouds and their feet not necessarily on the ground. As a political scientist who studies electoral reform, legislatures, political careers, political ambitions, I get that. What application does that have to the real world? Lyndon Johnson once stated that he knew he was in trouble with Americans when he had the Harvard eggheads on his. And that might be the kind of gulf that people think of it. And for people such as myself, a first-generation university student, first in my family to go to university, they can be intimidating environments. They can be something that are a little bit frightening, out of your comfort zone. New Canadians might think that they're not welcome. For our Indigenous students, particularly those in more remote communities, the entire spectacle of a European colonial system is fraught with fully justified concerns about colonialism. Thus, we need to break down stereotypes and reach out. We need to ensure that we are welcoming, safe, and enriching. Our research has real-life applications. So too does our teaching. We need to make sure that the community recognizes that. Sometimes being an egghead is okay. After all, we're all a little bit yokish in our own professions. So what can we offer to the community? How can we break down those barriers? In many ways, we already do. Like I said, our conservatory, a national reputation, a cultural draw, a showcase of the arts. Our observatory. Do you know how pumped I was when I was here? And I moved in, so I moved in, and I moved here May 1. And starting May 1. My wife and our youngest stayed in Brandon because she was a great quality patient. So there's no way they stayed back. So I was staying in residence, which was wonderful. And because it was residence and handy, I could be up early in the morning. It was May, the sun was shining at 6, and so I'd get up and I'd go over to the gym and I'd work on the treadmill. Probably about the 3rd day I was there, I kind of looked over, I was looking up, and I could see him. Is that an observatory? We have an observatory. That's amazing. You're fortunate to have a world-class Hubble-like telescope on top of the highest elevated building in Brandon. Come to one of our many open houses. See the stars. The next public observing is Friday, November 15th at 7 p.m., depending on the weather. There wouldn't have been one on Friday at 7 a couple of weeks ago. But that's tremendous. That's a tremendous kind of thing that we have to offer the community. And we do welcome the community. We want them to see what we're doing. The Healthy Living Center, Brandon's largest indoor gymnasium, hosts not only the Bobcats games, convocation, national tournaments, local tournaments. We have all kinds of things at the HLC. Our mini university. What a great way to break down the barriers between town and town. Young kids from pre-kindergarten to grade 8, hundreds of young learners on our campus during the summer months. And young students coming onto our campus at that age are less likely to be intimidated when they finish high school and go to a much bigger environment. It really opens up the doors. Our science fair and environmental expo, we hosted last year, the expo last year, hosted again next year, combining the best of high school and elementary schools, sets the right tone. They get to see some of our labs. They get to see some of what we're doing. They get to see some familiar faces. Bobcat sports camps. Again, we get young athletes here, trained, to have fun, see the Healthy Living Center. The Evans Theater that shows repertoire movies. We bring people in. I saw Thompson Highway days. What a tremendous opportunity to kind of up close and personal. He was testing a new one-act play, musical play he was doing. And he brought it to Evans in part because he wanted audience feedback. What a tremendous opportunity to have young musicians come and listen. The resources in the library. I've often argued that libraries are the intellectual heart of a university campus. But it should also be a welcoming place, an intellectual heart for the community. Our gathering space hosts many informal luncheon talks where everyone is welcome. I've had a tremendous opportunity to get some of them as well. Again, what a tremendous way. Great areas. Our talks on campus, everything from hosting Wynne Dyer, Samantha Nutt, and Thompson Highway, to name it a few, but also the conferences and talks that are open to the public, be they in the Warren Watson Hall or the gathering space in our library. Harvest Hall dining room that is open to the community. It was great to see in the summer the wedding events and anniversaries being held there, as well as Louis Riel Day, as well as citywide catering services, meeting spaces for community groups, from the Kiwanis to the Colombian Consulate. Often a venue for large community events like the Special Olympics, the Legion Track and National Field Championships. We are the athletes' village. So what can we do and what can we do more? Well, I mentioned getting our students into the community. Under Steve's great leadership as provost, we're increasing the number of co-op opportunities. We're really pushing co-ops so our students can learn and work with communities. And the businesses I've talked to are keen to have our students. Social service groups are keen to have our students. Learning is different now. We don't just learn in the classroom in the library. I was meeting with some of our librarians yesterday, and one who's in charge of government documents. That made me think of my undergraduate days when government documents filled vast amounts of space. And I would not have gotten a BA if it wasn't for the government docs librarian at my undergraduate institution. Now it's online. But I'll say that as a student, you might think online is just, hey, Siri or Google. If you don't have the training that a professional librarian can give you, you might as well be walking around those huge stacks because it's just as complicated and just as complex to get that kind of information. So learning is changing. Our students need more spaces. Libraries are not just books, but they're gathering places where 4 or 5 students can work in groups. We also want them to work in the community. Service learning, getting out and working with some of the social service agencies, experiential learning. Those kinds of opportunities are huge, and they involve the community. I had an experience many years ago. We were at Laurier, where we did Canada's first exit poll in an election. Never had been done before. And we had the help of the community. When we did this was many years ago, so early days of smartphones. We had students at polling stations in a riding in Kitchener-Waterloo. And as people were coming out, they were being asked questions, not identifying questions, but how did you vote, et cetera, et cetera. And they were relaying them on BlackBerry to a central computer at WOU. Well, RIM gave us the BlackBerries because, like, not many people had BlackBerries back then. It was a great community partnership. My job that day as a professor was to kind of go around and make sure everybody was okay. Well, Elections Ontario thought we were violating the Elections Act because they said we were blocking egress from the buildings, which we weren't. And it was Elections Ontario from Ontario. The people working at the polling stations were more than happy to have us there. So they were sending out warnings and we're going to send a lawyer and try to shut us down by 11 o'clock in the morning. And I came up to one group and I said, how's things going? People had cell phones, they weren't smartphones, just phones and cameras. And this one young student said to me, she said, well, my dad called, he heard on the radio that they want to shut us down. And he said, honey, I'm proud of you. And if you're going to jail for conducting social science, I'd happily bail you out. True story. But it shows what we can do with community. It shows that Elections Ontario might have wanted to shut us down, but the people in the polling stations saw what our students were learning. They saw what they were doing. And we think when I see students who have done projects in the community, let's say it's our nursing students who are doing work on nutrition and seniors homes. The one question I always ask students is this: what skill set did you learn doing this project that you will use 10 years from now when dealing with something that has nothing to do with seniors and nutrition? And the answers they give me are remarkable. It's not just communication, but it talks about how to overcome obstacles, how to change course on short notice, make sure your team is with you, etc. Those are the critical skills that universities provide. Those are the kind of the writing, the thinking, the adapting skills that are the transferable skills that outlast the fact that the Battle of Hastings was fought in 1066. And we need the community to help us with that. We need to be able to send students out in the communities to do that. And the response we're getting at BU is tremendous. Indigenization is part of our community. I was at Algoma University for the Truth and Reconciliation meetings a few weeks ago in Sault Ste. Marie. And it was tremendous what Algoma University has done with the Indigenous community. They have a residential school that's still on site. And they called together a group of residential school survivors, essentially made them the alumni. And said, you tell us what you want done with this. You tell us how to move forward. And what their response was remarkable. In the main floor of the residential school, the old residential school, which the upper floors is used as office space, but in the main floor, there is a tremendous historical display that talks about colonialism and what happened. There's a church on campus, and we did a tour and we talked to a survivor in the church, and she indicated, this was one of the happiest places I was when I was here because I could sing. But it was also one of the saddest places I was because I was losing my connection with my community. And I said, and she said, the work needs done on this building. We have to do something. And I said, well, what? And she said, well, this was built by young Indigenous men. We cannot tear it down. But we have to make sure it stands for something and it tells its own story. Tremendous work. We at BU are also doing tremendous work. We have a Senate subcommittee on University Senate subcommittee on indigenization, and we're pushing the barriers forward, working with our community. It's wonderful to have elders and knowledge keepers because that's part of town and gown relations as well, and getting wisdom from them. We've recently installed a permanent sacred fire. We've put up the 7 sacred teachings. We're putting up Treaty 2 flags, making flags, so that students will feel welcome. We've got a long way to go, but that community, that town, or that community and gown relation is critically important. And it allows our own students to learn as well. It opens up our eyes. What is a university if not a place to be educated, to have your world expanded? And that's what we're doing. And as someone that was kind enough to mention my Blackfoot name, 3 things important in my life in some ways: Parliament, legislatures, universities, institutions, education, and a rather ongoing relationship with the church. I think that those 3 groups kind of combined to do what they did suggest the job that all of us have to do in reconciliation. I'm proud to be a part of the UPAC, which is the Brandon Urban Aboriginal Community. that was just at a meeting, came here from there. But that's a tremendous example of a civil community college, Brenda School District, EU, working with the city, working with the Indigenous community to further those relations, Indigenous education, in any of those. We're now engaged in a strategic plan process. We have not had a strategic plan for a while. We began a strategic plan process. It's a fairly long process. As the professors here in this room would attest, there's a reason why universities have outlasted just about everything except the Roman Catholic Church. Is it because we're slow to change? But we're talking to our professors, we're talking to our students, we're talking to our alumni, I'm talking to the community, we're talking to the community. I invite you to visit our webpage. It really is part of building up what we're doing. We hope to have a draft out for consultative for comment, and hopefully we'll have a strategic plan by next fall, but we'll take our time to make sure we get it right. I can't judge for a minute what the strategic plan would be. Unwise for me to say what the strategic plan will look like. But I guarantee you it will really emphasize and parse the connection between community, between Brandon, between BU, between reaching out, between that symbiotic relationship that brings great things. So that's pretty much what I had to say. I'm certainly happy to have questions or comments. I will say that I was thinking the other day, boy, I could have pulled out my old minority government talk. But the idea that minority governments must need to cooperate, they must need to form partnerships, they can agree to disagree at times. But hopefully one of the nice things about minority governments, and one of the great things about BU and Brandon and relations, is that we can actually make the place a little bit better, a lot better. And we can get to know each other, learn from each other. And in a town this size, give you one more quick story that I really thought really spoke volumes. We had an incident not long after my arrival where we were hosting a conference. So great, town relations, bringing some people on campus for a conference. The American Men's Studies Association, that study masculinity, indigenization was important for them. They were hosting a conference on campus. We had a teepee up, we're going to have a fire opening ceremony the next morning. I got the call at 6 o'clock with the teepee. We had vandals come in. Never caught. So, but they came in. It was horrific. I stood there watching some of our Indigenous friends looking at this burning thing and thinking, oh my goodness, this is awful. This is exactly the same as African Americans in the Deep South seeing their churches burning. Because this isn't a place of religious, this is a spiritual place. We could have moved on, we could have just packed up. We're going to change venues, we could have, but we didn't. One of our knowledge keepers, Frank Passion, said, here's what we're going to do. So we went on with the opening ceremony. We made it part of the conversation. And later that afternoon, we raised 5 people. Everybody from the conference came out. My biggest joy was talking, I don't want to stereotype, but talking to this gentleman who came up for the conference who had a great, this is the stereotype, he had a great New Jersey accent. And he just said, I can't do it, I won't even try, you know, butcher. He said, I'm going to go back and tell people that I helped raise a teepee. And I'm going to talk about the significance of this. It was amazing. What was also amazing in terms of town-county relationship was the mayor showed up. Our 2 MLAs showed up because they'd heard what happened and they wanted to be a part of it. I phoned the chief of police and said, you know, we could use more security. We'll hire more security ourselves, but we could use some more. Could you kind of do drive-bys every 10 or 15 minutes? He said, how about 5? Tremendous good story. It was a story that ended up well for us. It really did in terms of healing. We felt better, the community felt better. And I couldn't think of a better example of town and town relations where we all learned something. We all, you know, celebrated who we were, and we were resilient, who we were, we bound like 1 or 2 cases. That's, I shouldn't end the talk with the word That's almost broken. but it really was a tremendous kind of. So those are my remarks. I'm happy to have a chat both formally or informally. I can't help but notice that there's one. I do want to, before I forget though, I want to give a shout out to Deanna Smith and Rick, and to Daniel Hubbard and Louise Ferguson to put this series on. I mean, the fact that I'm here talking about government relations in a speaker series that was developed between the public library and two of our faculty members is another. It's very, very fitting. For us in the academic world, it's a great example that when left to their own devices, our professors do. So thank the two of you and thank the public library.
Yes. Question, what do you look at Peace Garden? Would it, maybe your communication between the university and what was on at the Peace Garden?
Well, there's events there. We often have students go down and do events with students from North Dakota. At the Peace Garden at the start of the year. There's also a music camp. Are engaged with that every year. I know that there are other events, one-of-a-kind events from time to time, but nothing formal. I don't know. But it's certainly a nice venue for it.
So this is the 67th year that political science students from DU go to the Peace Gardens, and from my last state they come up. So for the last 67 years, once a year we've done it. So when I was an undergrad in my fourth year, I presented there, and the paper that I presented at this conference was my sample of my writing to get into my master's degree, and now I'm back here. So that connection has actually been a wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of things I didn't list. I mean, I went to the.
I'm a graduate from 87. Well, I'm pretty active in the Students' Union and government. One of the things that I've noticed all the time, and I'm all about the university engaging in the community, right? One of the things that I've noticed over time is there seems to be a shift away from scholarship, search for the truth, and politicized and programming, ways of thinking that are more political and economic based. And that's a concern for me, because as a kid from the park, coming to Brown University, I wanted to learn, and I wanted an academic degree, because we have a community college. And those are two distinct, different types of people. And I spent my last 25 years farming, but I still have this college. And I'm seeing that not being as supported as it used to be. I mean, we've lost lots of faculty. There's a lot of sectionals that are out there, but there's just doesn't seem to be that commitment to programs and scholarship in the work that
Yeah, I would respectfully disagree. I think that BU scholarship is stronger now than it ever has been. We're getting more shirt grants, we're getting more insert grants. Our folks are doing tremendous amounts of research and working, and most of that is based on searching for the truth, seeking truth, expanding our knowledge. I think if what you're referring to is the freedom of speech, academic freedom debate that's going on campuses across the country, there have been certain places and occasions where it has gotten less civil than it should have been. But I would never apologize. And I'm going to say something that meant to shock. I don't care what students do. I really don't. What I care about is that they know what they're thinking about. And when I say I don't care what they think, I don't want them to think like me. I don't want them to think like anybody else. I want them to think like themselves. I'm interested in their opinions. I don't care what those opinions are. They don't have to be my opinion. But they have to be based on the ability to think critically, to analyze what's in front of you, to look at it in 2 or 3 different ways. They have to be a good student is a student who loves going into my class, who sees the world through neo-institutionalized, or going into someone else's class who sees it through political economy, and being able to learn from both, and being able to make their own decisions. And I had a student came in to me once many years ago, and he said, "Sir, I read something you wrote, and I can't disagree more." Now, my first reaction was to say, "You read something I wrote?" Because none of probably my family has ever read it. But I love the fact that they were there to chat. That was great, and I'm not going to try to put them down. And the vast majority of our faculty are exactly the same. They care about young minds. They care less about their view on specific issues than they do that they're thinking about them critically. That's the search for truth. That's what a good university does. That's what a good professor does. It encourages students to challenge. It encourages them to take risks, take chances. What's one of the best things about tenure? You get to take risks. You can try new things in classes. And if they don't work the first time, you can change them up the next time around. You can take risks in your research. That's one of the great benefits of a university environment. And I think that, it's unfortunate that there's a few different instances where some are trying to express, some people may be trying to express opinion that isn't founded, but that's a small price to pay for the great work that's going on in the collectives at our university. I also think that universities can be, because let's face it, you look at the last election, you look at even some of the concession speeches after the election that were not based on getting together. Universities may well be the last bastion of civil discourse, and we need to protect that. We need difficult conversations that are based on respect for the individual who's having that conversation. And that's the same as when we're working with the panel, as when we're talking to each other on campus. And we can do it. So I understand what you're saying. I respectfully disagree, but I can see why. I understand that there are times when discourse is not so civil, and it loses sight of its main purpose, which is search for knowledge. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate everything else, and I really appreciate the library.